Today, we're going to talk about the mortgage rates dropping. We're going to look at November housing stats for the Portland metro area. We're going to give our opinions, what buyers and sellers should do. We might be able to give a little forecasting going into 2024. Things change. There was a big change this week. So let's start off with talking about rates, Katie.
Okay, we saw a rate drop. Our good friend Jerome Powell said that he thinks we're not near a recession. He doesn't see any kind of indications of that. And he spoke, and it's shortly after we see these interest rates come down to around 6.6%, which feels like quite a bit of relief coming off of where we were earlier in the summer, which was 8%. So, I don't know, what were your thoughts and feels after he spoke?
Well, I haven't watched the whole video yet. So I've kind of only seen headlines. So if I'm incorrect, I'll apologize in advance. There's been these bank forecasts and different forecasts coming out saying, oh, they're going to cut rates 4 to 6 times. And this is the Fed's fund rate, which is different than mortgage rates, but they kind of dance together a little bit. Mm-hmm. He said that they think they'll likely decrease them 2 to 3 times. As the economy is softening, that's good for mortgage rates, because if we had a really robust economy, rates would probably stay where they're at, right? So it's kind of a good news, bad news situation, for me personally, because I look at it and go, we need mortgage rate relief, but at the same time, it does mean that there are some like chinks in the armor, which is why rates are coming down. But overall, for home buyers, it is positive. When we look, just because we've been doing this over and over, when we look at a $600,000 purchase at 6.62%, where someone's putting 20% down or $120,000, so they're financing $480,000, we're going to assume $1,000 for homeowners insurance and $6,000, $500 a month for taxes. It brings your payment to $3,655, and that's a lot better than the $4,100 we were looking at a couple weeks ago at 8%. I still think it's a little bit out of reach for the average Portlander. We've had rates here this year, and the market wasn't crazy and robust, but hopefully we have a trend in the right direction. My Instagram today is people celebrating. I'm still not sure it's something to celebrate. Yesterday, I did a quick video on Instagram where people are going, rates drop, there's going to be lines at houses again. Well, in 2019, we had low months of inventory, we had rates in the 4s, and we only had 1.5% appreciation. There were not lines. Now, there could be, the market could get really robust, or we might just be dealing with a slow real estate market with lower rates. If you're a buyer watching right now, here's what's awesome. You can get in at rates in the mid 4s for the first year now on a buy down. That's really what we should be looking at. So those are my thoughts on mortgage rates right now. Do you want to add anything? Or
Yeah, that was my thought too. 6.6. Is it a reason to throw a party tonight? Probably not, but it might be a reason to pick up your phone and call a trusted mortgage lender and have a conversation. It could just be the start of a dialogue, the beginning of creating some kind of game plan for yourself for the next 12 or 24 months. So maybe this is just a catalyst for conversation, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just add is the 6.6% rate is lower than a lot of forecasts for mortgage rates in 2024. Mm-hmm. So mortgage rates, they go up and down like the stock market. Hopefully this is the beginning of a decline, a sustainable decline that we see for some time. That's what I would cross my fingers for. It could be a scenario where we have a dip right now and we see higher rates in a couple weeks. We just don't know. Hopefully it's the beginning of that sustainable decline in rates. But people should be aware that the 6.62% is below forecasted mortgage rates from a lot of lenders, and Goldman Sachs as an example, financial institutions, thought or do believe rates will be higher in 2024 on mortgages than 6 points.
Yeah, and maybe you find a house that you... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say 6.6 could be kind of that sweet spot. Maybe you find a house that you love that's been on the market for a month or so, and you ask your lender, how much would it cost to do a 2-1 buy down or a 3-2-1 buy down? Seller's eager to get out of there. And like you said, you're able to lock in a lower rate for those first few years. You probably wouldn't be able to do that if rates were lower. You'd have some competition. So maybe 6.6 is kind of that golden area where, as a buyer, you can still negotiate.
Yeah, I think there's still going to be plenty of negotiation opportunities for
Mhm.
buyers, at least for the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
So let's get into what happened year to date, and we'll look at the month of November specifically: new listings, pending sales, solds, what's happening with average sales price. Let's start first at average sales price, because when people go, how's the market, the number one question we get in real estate, I do believe the first thing they're asking about generally is price. And how's the market in Portland? Well, when we compare 2023 to 2022 through November, the average sales price has decreased 2.4% from 613,300 to 598,800. And during the same comparison, the median sales price decreased 3.1% from 550 to 533. Here's a common thing I get in my DMs when I talk about this. They go, well, aren't just less expensive houses selling? And I always respond that this is the average home seller and average home buyer's experience. The
Mhm.
average home seller's experience is they're selling for 2 to 3% less than last year. And the average home buyer's experience is they're buying for 2 to 3% less than last year. But there's an asterisk, because we also know that the majority of transactions in the market are seeing some sort of closing cost contribution between 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5% of the sales price. So we probably have true depreciation somewhere around 5 to 6% when we look at both the front end sales price going down and a seller's contribution to closing costs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was bound to happen. People are going to buy what they are approved for or what they can afford. And when affordability is a major issue, we see what we saw in the last 12 months, which is what felt like almost everything coming to a screeching halt, which we know is not quite what happened, but that's what it felt like based off of, if you compare it to what we were coming off of.
Yeah. So let's talk about, it was me this time. Let's talk about new listings. So during the month of November, 1,828 new listings came to the market. What's that mean? Because that number, if you just hear it for the first time, we like, what the heck does it mean? One of the lowest months for new listings this year. Spring, summertime, we were seeing about 3,000 homes come to the market. So 1,800 is a fairly low number. When we look year to date, 28,620 listings have listed for sale. That is the lowest number in 5 years. What's normal? Well, in 2019, there were 39,000 listings. In 2020, we saw 36,000 listings. That was a little short because that's when we had COVID lockdown start. 2021, the market opened up. We had the best market we've ever had in the history of Portland, Oregon, as far as sales. 38,000 listings. 2022, 35,000 listings. So we do have a housing shortage. And this is important because if rates bring more buyers into the marketplace and we zoom out, there is a housing shortage in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like it right now, because I just looked on our website. There's about 3,900 active listings for sale. If you've been watching this show, a month ago, there were about 4,500. So that's not more people buying. That's people removing their homes from the market for the holidays. But right now there's about, let's just call it 4,000 housing options on any given day on the market for the average buyer looking, which gives us 3.5 months of inventory at the current pace people are buying, which is the highest level of homes or the slowest pace of sales that we've seen going back till 2014. Sorry, that was a lot. I just went on a big talking spree.
No, I think it's no secret that fourth quarter is kind of a quiet time for real estate. Sellers don't want to open up their homes for showings because they're celebrating the holidays, or maybe they're just locked into a 2 or 3% interest rate. They don't want to sell their house. And buyers are preoccupied too. So sometimes this is a quieter time. But again, inventory is historically low because, like I previously mentioned, why would I sell my house if I'm locked into this great rate and then I go to purchase and I'm at 6.6%?
Yeah.
And I, as an agent who works with several buyers and feeling it too, a lot of times when I reach out to my buyers, I like to hand them something of value, like, hey Joe, I saw this house on 123 Apple Street and I thought of you. I wanted to send it your way. My emails this week are looking different. Hey Joe, I was thinking of you. I have nothing to send you this week. No properties that made me think of you, but you're still on my mind. I'll keep an eye out. And those are the conversations I'm having right now. But I don't have a lot to share with a lot of buyers who are looking right now simply because there's not a lot on the MLS that I can give them.
Yeah, and I imagine some buyers that have been shopping for the last couple of months, their motivation is likely to increase in these next couple of weeks where we're seeing these low rates. If
Mm-hmm.
you're pre-approved with a number with a 7 in front of it, and now you're looking at 6.6, if you're able to find that ideal home and lock it in, I mean, you're saving yourself, an amount of money that is going to allow you probably to go on a pretty decent vacation. Right. So we are talking about, rates dipping this much, $400 or $500 in relief for some people in the average price point, which is good. So let's move on to pending sales. So pending sales during the month of November, 1,441. That's pretty in line with what we predicted. I think we thought there were going to be, just a little bit more than 1,500 pending sales. Going back to this 5-year outlook, this is the lowest number of pending sales that we've seen in the last 5 years. I wish I had a 10-year chart in front of me because it's probably the lowest number of pending sales in the last 10 years, to be truthful. Height of the market 2021, at this time, there had already been 33,000 pending sales. So we're more than 13,000 pending sales short of just 2 years ago. We're 5,000 pending shorts of last year. The last normal year we had, 2019, which remember we talked earlier, 1.5% appreciation. That was a slower year in the market. There were still almost 29,000 pending sales by this time. So, we are seeing affordability in 2023 really stifle that housing demand. If you're a buyer, that is an opportunity. That's the affordability in the market is a challenge that creates opportunity for certain buyers today.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's where creativity comes into play and a skilled mortgage lender. So you need to be able to make sure you're going to somebody who can put some puzzle pieces together for you and move some things around and come up with some scenarios. Like, this is what scenario A would look like with this percent down and this rate buy down and this seller contribution to closing costs. And this is scenario B and C, etc. You need to have somebody on your team in a market like this who's going to be patient and willing and ready to have that dialogue with you throughout the process to get you to that point of offer acceptance.
Yeah, this is really a professionals market.
Yes.
If you're a home buyer, you want to work with truly a professional mortgage broker that understands, how to, I don't want to say manipulate is the wrong word, but how to position you to get
Yes.
the best pricing on a mortgage
Yeah.
and put you in the best program. Because, the reality is, like a 6.6% rate should only be the starting point. Doing a buy down might really be to your benefit in the short term. Maybe not. A real professional mortgage broker is going to be able to help you with that. And if you need one of those referrals, slide into the DMs at Katie Henderson PDX, and Katie will make sure to get you connected to one.
And those conversations with lenders, they shouldn't be scary. You should not be afraid to ask these questions. If they're good at their job, they're going to like talking through these scenarios with you. And it can be fun to kind of manipulate and finesse these different little ways, avenues to which you can become a homeowner.
Yeah.
I think it can be really exciting.
Strategy is important once again in real estate, which I really appreciate. I didn't love 2021 where it was stand in line, make highest offer. Stand in line, make highest offer. Stand in line, make highest offer. right? As a listing agent, talk to a ton of people in a short period of time, stay up all night, review lots of offers. This seems to be a much better market for buyers and sellers, because the reality is sellers are buyers as well, right? So I like that we're back to a market of strategy. Closed sales. There were 1,344 closed sales during the month of November. When we look year to date through November, we've had 19,538 closed sales. That's the lowest number of closed sales that we've seen, if I remember right, since 2012. Height of the market, 32,492 closed sales in 2021 by this time. Last year, 26,473 closed sales. This is affordability rearing its ugly head. Because remember, right now there's 4,000 homes on the market, and in 11 months, there's been 19,000 closed sales. What the Portland housing market really needs is affordability, and it's going to come in a couple different ways. It's going to come from mortgage rates decreasing. It's going to come from pricing decreasing, which we're seeing, or it's going to come from pricing decreasing and mortgage rates decreasing. But we need affordability in this market if the Portland housing market is going to be a robust market. Now, if you're a home buyer, I would encourage you to zoom out, because when you zoom out, we have a housing shortage in the United States. We have a housing shortage in Portland. And in the last 26 of 30 years in the Portland housing market, we've had appreciation. As soon as it's January, I'll say 25 years of 30 years because of the depreciation this year. This is probably the best year in a decade, really is the best year in a decade, to control the pricing aspect of purchasing a home. I'm not going to say it's the best time to buy a house because the mortgage rates suck, but we haven't had downward pressure on pricing like we have today in more than a decade. And if you're a seller, you need to know you're selling a home in the hardest market in a decade. So where there's an opportunity for a buyer, it's only because there's a challenge for a seller. And that really is showing up in closed sales. And when I look at Instagram and I see people talking about how amazing the market is, it just makes me sad because I don't believe it's the truth. The truth is, owning real estate is like one of the most beautiful investments you can make for you, your family, for the future you. It's an amazing, amazing asset. But it doesn't mean it's always the right time to buy and sell. It doesn't mean it's always easy. It is hard this year to be a buyer. It is hard this year to be a seller. And the numbers speak to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say this is true in any market, but I'm finding myself repeating this more and more to buyers today too. If homeownership is a goal of yours and you're not a homeowner yet, open those blinders a little bit, keep your mind open. Your first home is not your forever home. Maybe look at a few other options. Go to coffee with the lender. Don't just communicate with them over email. But this is a unique market where you're really going to have a close relationship. You're going to have that ongoing dialogue. And maybe your first home isn't what you had in mind, but now you're a homeowner and you became a homeowner in one of the more challenging markets. And it's leverage. It's a stepping stone.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Most people, if you're a first-time home buyer, your ideal home or your forever home is probably out of reach. And that's because you need the equity transfer to get to the next house. Most of the time in an average market, most people cannot outsave the rate of appreciation. Hey, maybe if you're a downsizer, right, and you've built a lot of equity and you're buying down in price, the further you go down in price, the more crowded the market always is, right? Like around the average sales price or below, that's where the first-time home buyers are. That's where the downsizers are. That's where the investors are. Guess who's not in the market really today? Investors, right? There aren't a lot of investors who want to borrow money at 8% or can make something like that work because rents are below where mortgage rates are today. So maybe you're watching this and you're a downsizer. You might give up a little equity on the way out, But what you give up, you'll probably gain in ease of a transaction and the ability to purchase something that's currently on the market.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just do a quick recap, and then we'll just give maybe just one little more piece of advice to buyers and sellers. So year to date, when we look at the first 11 months of 2023, new listings decreased 18.4% from where they were last year. Pending sales decreased 21.6%, and closed sales decreased 26.2%. Here's the important numbers in there. Listings are only down 18%, but closed sales are down 26%. That's a disparity, right? That is hard to be a seller, easier to be a buyer in this market. And that is actually that'll be my word of advice. In challenges is usually where the opportunity lies, right? In 2021, the challenge for a seller was finding the right house to buy. But the big opportunity they had was they were getting crazy pricing for their home, right? They had to go pay crazy pricing on the buy side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today, there's a lot more sellers than there are buyers. If you're a great house, you're well priced, you're well positioned, you're well represented, it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to take advantage of this market.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your advice, Katie, to buyers and sellers?
Sellers, like you mentioned, I think representation is going to be key right now. Marketing is going to be key. If you're having a listing appointment with a potential listing agent, someone you're thinking about having represent you, ask them, what are you going to do to sell my house? What's going to be different that you're doing to position my property to sell for top dollar than maybe the last agent I spoke to? You should ask those hard questions if you're a seller right now. If you're a buyer, keep that open mind. Go to coffee with that mortgage lender that you trust. Have a conversation. And maybe if you're not ready to start writing offers tomorrow, that's okay. Just start a dialogue and get a relationship going. And we'll see what happens with rates over the next 6 to 12 months. But if you've already established those relationships with trusted professionals early on in the year, then you're going to be ready to go. You're going to be in a good position.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So if you're thinking about buying a home in 2024, maybe even between now and the end of the year, you're shopping, you're confused, you need someone to maybe shed some light on a path, reach out to one of us, right? My email is David at HillshireRealtyGroup.com. Katie is Katie at HillshireRealtyGroup.com. You can find both of our contact information in the description below. We'd love to give you any advice that we can. If you liked what you heard, like and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't like what you heard, I'm sorry. Please don't leave us a comment about how crappy the city of Portland is or what your opinions are, because those comments don't serve anybody, and they don't hurt our feelings. So until next time, bye-bye. How do I stop this?